Hello everyone, my name is Tham Nhân. I am a first year student in the BUSI1204 class, majoring in Business Administration at the University of Greenwich. And today I am going to talk about an academic article that I found really interesting. The article is titled Recent Advice on Greenhouse Gas Emissions from Corporations. It was published in an academic journal that focuses on environmental and agricultural research. In this presentation, I will give an overview of what the research is about, explain why I found it interesting, and finally give my critical evaluations of the paper. The author wanted to understand how much greenhouse gas like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide is released from crop lands and what causes this emission to vary across different farming systems. Then they analyze how emission trends depending on things like soil type, climate, irrigation, and tillage practice. What they found is that emissions are incredibly diverse. For example, wetter soil or area with heavy fertilizer, you tend to realize more nutritious oxide, while the real result emits less methane. The type of crop on the matter a rice field, for instance, behave very differently from a maize or wheat field. But what stood out to me is that even with all this data, there are still big gaps. Some regions, like parts of Africa and South America, have very little research. That means a global understanding of agricultural emission is still incomplete. In the end, the author suggests that future studies should use more consistent measurement methods and include a wider range of locations. They also agree that emission reduction strategies need to be tailored to local conditions rather than applying the same solution everywhere. What really caught my attention about this paper is how it challenges the ways we think about farming. People see agriculture as something natural, even environmentally friendly. But this article makes me realize that farming can actually be a major source of greenhouse gases. At the same time, it's not all negative. The research shows that with better management, like optimizing fertilizers, you are improving irrigations. Farmers could play a big role in reducing emissions. I think that's encouraging because it means solutions are possible if we understand the science behind the problem. Personally, as a student, I also found it fascinating how the researchers compiled data from so many studies to get a global picture. It shows how science builds connections across individual projects to answer much bigger questions about our planet. In my opinion, the article is very well organized and easy to follow. It takes an enormous amount of information and turns it into something meaningful and accessible. That's not easy to do. One of its biggest strengths is how comprehensive it is. The author didn't just focus on one graph or one result, but try to understand the global patterns. That made the study valuable for researchers and policy makers who want to make agriculture more sustainable. Of course, there are some limitations because the data come from so many different studies. It's with their own methods and time frames. The research can only show general trends, not precise cause and effect relationship. Although while the article clearly identifies what factor matter, it doesn't. It follows much about how those factors interact. For instance, see how fertilizers use might affect emissions differently in warm and cool climates. Another thing is that the paper is wide scientific, so it doesn't give farmers or governments very practical steps to follow. But I don't see that as a weakness. It's more like a foundation. It gives other researchers the tool to go deeper and design real-world solutions. Overall, I think this article is a great example of how research can help us understand and address climate change. It shows that small actions on farm can have a global impact and that science play a crucial role in building those actions. For me, reading this paper was not just about learning fast, it was about seeing how knowledge, data, and collaborations can come together to solve one of the biggest challenges of our time. Thank you so much for listening.